Moments ago, the kind of history was made that no nation should be proud of. Seconds after the President of the United States proclaims a day for Martin Luther King Jr., reporters in the room shouting out questions, asking the President if he's a racist.
Mr. President, will you give an apology for the statement yesterday?
Mr. President, did you refer to African nations? Did you refer to shitholes?
Mr. President, are you a racist? Mr. President, will you respond to these serious questions about your statement, sir?
No, Mr. President, absolutely.
I'm talking to the President, not you, sir.
talking to you.
Mr. President, are you a racist?
This is the controversy President Trump has created after he called African nations, quote, shithole countries, according to a source. That kind of vulgarity prompting condemnation from every corner of the globe, including the president's hometown paper, right here. Look at that. Beyond Africa, the source also says the president also insulted the nation of Haiti, asking, quote, why do we need more Haitians? He was just told they are under what's known as a temporary protected status. At first, the White House gave made no denials, but today President Trump did deny it, saying he used his words tough language and that he said nothing derogatory against Haitians. However, at least 7 other people were in the room, including Illinois Democrat Dick Durbin, whose account, if true, means that the president's denials are a flat-out lie.
As Senator Graham made his presentation, the president interrupted him several times with questions, and in the course of his comments, said things which were hate-filled, vile, and racist. I use those words advisedly. I understand how powerful they are, but I cannot believe that in the history of the White House, in that Oval Office, any president has ever spoken the words that I personally heard our president speak yesterday. You've seen the comments in the press. I have not read one of them that's inaccurate. To no surprise, the president started tweeting this morning denying that he used those words. It is not true. He said these hate-filled things, and he said them repeatedly. The most disheartening thing to me is my belief that that was the first time words that hateful had been spoken in the Oval Office of the White House. I think back of presidents throughout history, and I cannot imagine a moment where a president sunk to that depth. That's what breaks my heart.
First time words that hateful spoken in the Oval Office. Here she is, April Ryan, CNN political analyst and White House correspondent for American Urban Radio Networks. April, we played the clip. We didn't see you. We heard your voice. You were one of a couple reporters shouting out the question to the President of the United States, are you racist? This is where we are in 2018.
Yes, Brooke, it was hard to really ask that question, particularly as this president was trying to celebrate, if you will, Dr. Martin Luther King, the dreamer, the man of equality, the man of peace for all people in this nation and globally. You know, listening to the president talk about Dr. King and then Ben Carson and then the nephew of Dr. King, I felt bad that I had to ask this, but the day before was really big. I mean, this president is accused of saying this repeatedly. So I had to ask the questions that I did today. I mean, in a moment like this, you have a great moment and then you have to go to the reality of the day and the time. Allegedly, is the president saying that Africans, El Salvadorians, and Haitians come from S-hole places?
And this is what I've heard from people.
I had to ask the questions.
You know, we're hearing Gloria Borger has a source that says the president, as he's been, you know, obviously keeping track of all this coverage, of this controversy, of the words he's apparently chosen to use, and that the source is saying the president loves it. Loves it.
Loves this? Okay. Well,
what are you hearing?
What I'm hearing, well, as you're saying, the president loves this. There's collateral damage. I had more people calling me yesterday HBCU presidents of historically black colleges and universities who are very upset. They're now saying that they have to go to their students and reassure them that they're okay, that they're safe, that we want you here. Many of these HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, have international students. For instance, Tennessee State University, I talked to the president there, Dr. Glenda Glover, who says she has 10% of her student body coming from Africa or the Caribbean. And she says they do very well. She says that they're in engineering and different programs there, and they do very well, get degrees and come back for more degrees. And many of these schools depend upon students to help them to continue to go. And the international student population is huge. And for this president to say this, they are now having to go back, and they're very concerned. They're galvanizing and trying to talk about this right now. There is collateral damage within the black community. You know, you hear the NAACP giving the definition of racist. I asked Hillary Shelton of the NAACP last night, what is the definition of racist? And he said, when there's racial prejudice and when there is power that come together. And that begged the question today. There is power in this place, the highest office in the land. And then the question of racial prejudice. So when those two come together, that's one of the reasons why I asked the question today. I guess I was the only one that asked that question repeatedly today.
It's a sad day that the question has to be asked, period. April Ryan, thank you so much there from the White House. From what we know, Senator Durbin was the only Democrat in the room when the president called these African nations shithole countries. The question we're asking is, well, what about the Republicans? What are the Republicans saying? Two quotes, two senators, I should say, Tom Cotton and David Perdue, they're saying, quote, we don't recall. So that's what we're getting from them. As far as the leaders of their party, it's taken more than half a day for House Speaker Paul Ryan to respond. But here he was this morning.
I read those comments later last night. So first thing that came to my mind was very unfortunate, unhelpful.
With me now, Republican David Jolly, former congressman from Florida, and CNN political commentator Marc Lamont Hill, host of BET News and a professor at Temple University. Gentlemen, David Jolly, first just to you. You heard the speaker saying unfortunate and unhelpful. Unfortunate and unhelpful. These are the adjectives that he's using for this. You saw Senators Cotton and Perdue with we don't recall. We don't recall? What is that?
Look, Brooke, let's be honest. This is an embarrassing day to be a Republican. And for rational Republicans, you should be angry today. I believe the president's comments, if they were made, were racist. But even if you do not, if you're a defender of Donald Trump, here's the important thing. We know our president, through word and deed over the past 2 years, has certainly expressed an ideology based upon a certain social hierarchy, a construct where white people of European descent, particularly those of wealth, have a different place in society than poor people of color. We know that. We have seen that through word and deed. And why it is important, forget about what he said in the Oval Office. It's important because this is somebody who is directing the policy of the United States. And he is crafting legislation with the Hill that will affect millions of lives, particularly poor people of color. As a Republican Party, we went from a leader in Bush 43 who challenged the soft bigotry of low expectations to a president in Donald Trump who peddles the hard bigotry of no expectations for people of color.
Wow. Let me read one more statement. This is from a Democrat, Mark. This is Senator Dianne Feinstein, California. Released a blistering statement. Part of it reads, if the president can't control himself and lead this country with authority, dignity, and leadership it requires, then he shouldn't be the president. There's no room for racism in the Oval Office. That was one quote, and there was another quote up on the screen, which I'm happy to read if you guys want to throw it back up. And you can see more of what Senator Feinstein has said. You know, Mark, the thing is, he, as I mentioned with April, he's saying that he's loving this controversy. He's loving all of this swirling around him. And it's astonishing to me that we're at a point where clearly the president doesn't realize the hurt in his words.
Yeah, or he doesn't care. I mean, we also have to allow for the possibility that he's fully aware of the hurt that he's causing, and he's simply indifferent to the suffering of other people. I mean, there's a long history in Donald Trump's presidential life, in just this year, much less his entire life, where he has consistently shown indifference and actual angst and actual anger and actual hatred toward people of color around the world. So this is no surprise to anyone. I agree with Senator Feinstein that if he can't be a leader, he shouldn't be there, and he has clearly demonstrated that he doesn't have the capacity to lead with dignity, with humanity, and with any sense of fairness. This is stunning, and you know, it's not stunning. Let me not say it. It's not stunning. This is entirely consistent with everything else he's done. I'm not surprised. The only thing I'm surprised at is that he would say it with that many people in the room who would allow it to leak. I thought he'd be a little more discreet. I didn't think he'd be less racist, just more discreet.
Less racist, but more discreet. But I feel like we're almost stuck in Groundhog Day, right? Where the president says something insane, and we're all looking for Republican leadership to respond. Sometimes they do, sometimes it's just so loud in their silence, and then it goes away, and then he says something else, and it's like this, David Jolly, it's this cycle, and he's, you know,
Sure.
It's the denials. He says he's lying. He says I should start recording my conversations.
Sure. Look, these last 24 hours is very similar to when he stood in front of a portrait of Andrew Jackson with the Native American code talkers and used the term Pocahontas. His base loves that. They laughed at it. All you have to do is take the transcript, and whether he used specific words or not, it is clear the concurrence of those in the room, what he was trying to say, which is we don't want to welcome people from certain nations because they are lesser people than we are. Brooke, that is a Donald Trump rally. That is Donald Trump's GOP. This is the hijacking he has done to the Republican Party.
But I want to challenge you on that. I want to challenge you on that. I understand that he is saying that, you know, this is, you know, yes, rallying the base, but at the same time, you know, some of the Trump defenders are saying, well, you know, the president's saying what all of us are saying out loud in bars and at restaurants, you know, across the country. But is that really fair? I mean, let me just ask that. Is that fair to Trump's voters?
Well, yes, I actually do think it's fair to a large contingent.
Yes, it's fair
Look,
to Trump voters.
What Donald Trump is doing is he is using the office of the presidency to give permission to Americans to listen to the lesser angels among us. No president has done that before.
Go ahead, Mark.
I mean, the truth here is, if you voted for Donald Trump, you either voted for him because you agreed with the racist statements that he made consistently throughout the campaign, or you were indifferent to it. You were willing to sit back idly by and allow a racist to win. So in either way, you are complicit in the racism that we're seeing prevail right now. And as far as Donald Trump and his base goes, yes, Donald Trump is speaking to his base. And yes, those people do sit in bars and say racist things. They do make racist jokes at home. Yes, they do call Africa a shithole. That's what they do. But that's not everybody who voted for Trump, but it's enough of them to matter. And the key at this point, though, I think, is that he may have just jumped the shark. There are moments where people say, okay, well, he's going to put a ban on Muslims, and some people sit idly by and allow Islamophobia to prevail. But at this moment, when he stands up and says something so explicitly and egregiously racist, I think there will be people who say, you know what, I can't stay on this ride anymore. I'm going to finally leave. Not all of them, but enough of them to make it difficult for Donald Trump to govern and to make it difficult for Donald. I mean, you have Republicans who normally would lie with Donald Trump, and instead they're saying, I don't recall. I mean, you'd remember something like that in a meeting. So the fact that they're punching on this says that maybe people are falling off the bandwagon.
I know. The House Speaker saying unfortunate, and those two Republican senators saying, I don't recall. I don't know how you don't.
Unfortunate and unhelpful, like it's a rain cloud. This is a pretty big deal. Like, this isn't something that's unfortunate and unhelpful.
Yeah. Marc Lamont Hill, David Jolly, thank you both very much. And you know, reading all of this and listening to so many different opinions, you know what all of this made me think of? Made me think of that poignant speech given at the U.S. Air Force Academy's preparatory school last year. Do you remember this? The superintendent, the Lieutenant General Jay Silveria. He gathered all the Air Force cadets and he didn't mince words. And it turned out the racial incident he was responding to, that turned out to be a hoax, but his words have never rung truer than today.
So just in case you're unclear on where I stand on this topic, I'm going to leave you with my most important thought today. If you can't treat someone with dignity and respect, then you need to get out. If you can't teach someone from another gender, whether that's a man or a woman, with dignity and respect, then you need to get out. If you demean someone in any way, then you need to get out. And if you can't treat someone from another race or a different color skin with dignity and respect, then you need to get out.
Mr. President, the world is watching you. The choice is yours. Next, here on CNN, the global reaction to the president's words. Multiple countries, including close allies to the U.S., are expressing outrage. We'll discuss the long-term impact of these key relationships. Also ahead, the State Department is giving U.S. diplomats guidance on how to handle this firestorm. This, as one U.S. ambassador explains why he is resigning, citing differences with the Trump administration.